Good morning and welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting in the Minneapolis City Council. My name is Barbara Johnson, Minneapolis City Council President. And this morning, before we begin our council meeting, we have the opportunity to recognize some of our employees who are involved in military service. And I would invite all of you to come at 11:30 to the Rotunda, where we're going to have a ceremony honoring the people in the city of Minneapolis that serve in our military services. And so this morning, I have some people who would like to come up, if they would please, representative of that group. Okay. Morning. And I'm joined, we'll introduce, after I read this resolution, we'll introduce people, but we have an employee resource group that is just beginning, and it is for service members and veterans. So we have a lot of people who are currently serving in military service as well as working for the city of Minneapolis, and then also our military veterans that have retired from active military service and are serving the city. So this morning I'm going to read a resolution of the mayor and the city council, and again invite you to the Rotunda at 11:30. And this is the resolution that says, whereas service members and veterans make tremendous sacrifices and take risks to serve our country, and whereas service members and veterans make up approximately 13% of the city's workforce, and whereas Merica, which is the acronym for the group, stands for Military Employee Recognition, Influence, Culture, and Attitude. And whereas Merica is a newly formed City of Minneapolis Employee Resource Group created to provide support and camaraderie to city employees who are service members and veterans. And now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and the city council of the city of Minneapolis that we recognize and honor the military service of these employees and the creation of Merica. So we'll be presenting this at the ceremony. And I'd like to introduce the employee who has begun this initiative for us in the city of Minneapolis.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you all for being here. I would also like to introduce Paul Myers.
Your name, I'm sorry, I didn't do that.
My name is Tony Hauser. I'm the co-chair. Paul Myers is the other chair with me. And then Meg Zopoulos is with our fire department. And our executive sponsor is Fire Chief John Friedel, who we are very happy to have on board. So we would like to invite you all again to our ceremony at 11:30. We have a number of speakers, including the state of Minnesota's Adjutant General's Government Affairs Officer, who will be here to talk about the role of military service members in public service.
Thank you. Would love to have you all join us this morning. Anybody else care to speak? We are a yellow ribbon city, and part of that is that commitment is to provide support for our people that have served and then also continue to serve in military service, and obviously take advantage of the wonderful training, the expertise that they bring to the jobs, bring back to their jobs. And so it's really been a pleasure. I've served to chair that Yellow Ribbon Committee for several years now, and we're very, very proud to be a Yellow Ribbon city. So again, invite you all to join us at 11:30 this morning. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Minneapolis City Council. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Warsame is absent. Goodman.
Present.
Fry.
Here.
Palmisano is absent. Gordon is absent. Kano.
Here.
Reich.
Here.
Bender is absent. Glidden.
Here.
Yang is absent. Johnson.
Here.
Quincy. Here. President Johnson.
Here.
There are 8 members present.
We have a quorum present. Councilmember Yang is on family business. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda, and we have a couple motions. First is a motion by Councilmember Glidden to amend the agenda to remove the U visa ordinance from the order of ordinance introductions and add an ordinance introduction to the order of introduction and referral calendar. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next, we have a motion by Councilmember Andrew Johnson to amend the agenda to include under the Zoning and Planning Committee a motion to refer to staff the exterior buildings materials ordinance. And is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have a motion by myself to amend the agenda to include under the order of new business the local government amicus brief in Janus versus AFSCME, Council 31.
So, second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have acceptance of the minutes of November 3rd, 2017. Any discussion on that report? It's been moved.
Second.
Move that.
Move.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next is referral of petitions, communications, and reports of the city officers to proper committees and departments.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
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 Opposed? That carries. Next, we have the reports of the standing committees. The first is Committee of the Whole. That committee is chaired by the Council Vice President Elizabeth Glidden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a reminder to my colleagues that our committee report for today includes items that were traditionally on Ways and Means. Item number 1 is Minneapolis Workplace Advisory Committee appointments. Items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 and 9 are legal settlements. Item number 10 is acceptance of a low bid. Item number 11 is acquisition of 2651 University Avenue Northeast from the state of Minnesota for the East Side Storage and Maintenance Facility Project. Item number 12 is a contract amendment for ServiceNow implementation services. Item 13 is authorizing a standard non-disclosure agreement for telecommunications services. Item 14 is a contract amendment for LCP tracker, application. Item 15 is a contract for safety cameras and video monitoring. Item 16 is a contract for deduplicating services. Item 17 is a approval of a collective bargaining agreement with the Minneapolis Foremen's Association. Item 18 is a license agreement with Minneapolis Public Schools for space for providing public health services in the event of public health emergencies. Item 19 is acceptance of a grant from Clearway, Minnesota for implementation of menthol tobacco ordinance. Item 20 is accepting a certified local government grant from the Minnesota Historical Society for music history context statement. Item 21 is directing city staff to report back on next steps of internship program pathways to an appropriate committee of the City Council by March 1st, 2018. This would be a direction to human resources staff for the City of Minneapolis. Item 22 is approving a 2017 transition schedule for meetings. Item 23 is directing staff to review workplace policies for anti-harassment and safety and security staff directives. And I will move all 23 items.
Councilmember Glidden has moved the committee of the whole report. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Fry is absent. Palmisano. Gordon, Kano,
Aye.
Reich,
Aye.
Glidden,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Quincy,
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 7 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Community Development and Regulatory Services Report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam President. The Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee is bringing 20 items forward for approval this morning. Item 1, including all items till item number 12, are special levy assessments relating to nuisance conditions. Item number 2 is consent of expenditures for Abaton Mill City Apartments. Item 3 is approving financing for Green Fourth Apartments. Items 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all liquor license applications and expansions. Item number 8 is fee during pending license action ordinance. Item 9 are the regular liquor business and gambling licenses. Item 10 are license operating conditions. Item 11 is the Super Bowl designated large event zone. Item 12 is a rental license reinstatement, as is item 13. Item 14 are changes to the Grow North Down Payment Assistance Program. Item 15 is issuing an administrative fee for state-issued GO bond projects that the city assists with. Item 16 is the Norway House bonding project. Item 17 is consent for an issuance of revenue bonds for Augustana Chapel Homes. Item 18 is a contract amendment with Homes on Humboldt Greenway. 19 is the fall round of Hennepin County TOD projects. And item 20 is a contract amendment on the North Nicollet Hotel block. With that, I'll move items 1 through 20 for approval this morning.
Councilmember Goodman has moved the Community Development and Regulatory Services Report. Anyone want to pull off any of those items? Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Goodman,
Aye.
Fry,
Aye.
Kano,
Aye.
Reich,
Aye.
Glidden,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Quincy,
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Intergovernmental Relations Committee report. That committee is chaired by the Council Vice President Elizabeth Glidden.
Thanks, Madam Chair. There's 4 items. First is a resolution supporting federal funding for the National Park Service. We have our 2018 legislative policy positions. We have a resolution with authorizing withdrawal from the Red Rock Corridor Commission Joint Powers Agreement. And finally, we have the short list of 2018 legislative agenda items, which would be the priority items for the work plan. I move all 4.
Councilmember Glidden has moved the Intergovernmental Relations report. Anyone want to pull anything off or discuss any of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Goodman,
Aye.
Fry,
Aye.
Gordon is absent. Kano,
Aye.
Reich,
Aye.
Glidden,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Quincy,
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee. Councilmember Quincy will give that report.
Thank you, Madam President. Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee has 1 item. It is a contract with the Minnesota Timberwolves for bomb detection services at Target Center. I'd like to move that item for approval.
Councilmember Quincy has moved the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management report. Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Goodman,
Aye.
Fry,
Aye.
Kano,
Aye.
Reich,
Aye.
Glidden,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Quincy,
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Transportation Public Works report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee reports 21 items today. The first item is the non-governmental tax exempt parcel street operations fee, 2018 assessments. Item 2 is the non-governmental tax exempt parcel street maintenance, 2018 assessments. Item 13 is the agreement with the Metropolitan Council of Environmental Services for interconnected sanitary sewer infrastructure. Item 4 is the delegation of authority for contracts for maintenance or repair of sanitary sewer systems. And that will be delegating authority to the Director of Public Works. Item 5 is the contract with the University of Minnesota for traffic signals. Item 6 is the contract amendment with Rice Lake Construction Group for Fridley Softening Plant Recarbonation Improvement Project. Item 7 is the contract amendment with the Tool Design Group for the winter maintenance study. Item 8 is the limited use permit with the MnDOT for trail segment Industrial Boulevard at I-35W. Item 9 is the 42nd Avenue North Street Reconstruction Project, special assessment reductions. Those reductions are listed. Item 10 is the Nicollet Mall Reconstruction Project, removal of assessments for the MnDOT right-of-way parcels. Item 11 is the request for proposals for construction of the management services for Hennepin Avenue. That goes from 12th Street to Washington Avenue for that reconstruction project. Item 12 is a request for proposals for engineering services for new water main crossings. Item 13 is the Columbia Heights Campus Upgrades Project, and it's an increase to the 2017 appropriation for the amount listed. Item 14 is the water distribution improvements, increase the 2017 appropriation. Item 15 is the 2017 levy for various Public Works Department special assessments. Item 16 is the Super Bowl block party event for February 4, 2018. Item 17 is the Super Bowl live event permit for January 26th through February 4th. Item 18 is the Super Bowl experience block event permit for the same period, or no, January 27th through February 4th. Item 19 is the bid for Freely Softening Plant Cones Flume Rehabilitation Project Phase 5. Item 20 is the bid for the Lindale Avenue outfall improvements. And the final item, the contract amendment Clear Night Group LLC for communications and public relations services for the Nicollet Mall reconstruction. And we'll note that there was a reduction in the amount that will be outlaying and doing some more in-house work to complete that work. Madam President, I move all items as submitted.
Councilmember Reich has moved the Transportation and Public Works report. Anyone want to pull any of those items off or discuss them? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Kano. Kano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang is absent. Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Zoning and Planning Committee report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Bender. Oh, she's not here. I'm sorry. Councilmember Johnson is vice chair.
Thank you, Madam President. We have 8 items we're bringing forward today, and the motion as our agenda was amended. Item 1 is certificate of appropriateness appeal, as is item number 2. Item number 3 is a conditional use permit and site plan review appeal. Item 4 is an interim use permit. 5 is a rezoning. 6 is a street vacation. 7 is regulation of parking garage ordinances. And 8 is a land use fees and related standards ordinance. I know item number 1 and 2 are going to have motions on them by a colleague, so I will, instead of including those, go ahead and move items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and as well the motion to refer to staff the exterior building materials ordinance heard at the November 9th ZMP meeting as item number 8 and originally approved for postponement to the next meeting.
So Councilmember Johnson has moved items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, the motion to refer back to staff the ordinance regarding building material, exterior building materials. Any discussion on any of those items?
Madam President,
Sorry.
we have a particularly complicated zoning and planning agenda, so I did want to add in on item number 7, moving approval of the ordinance, including the following technical amendments to section 530.120 to reflect formatting changes.
Okay, why don't we, you have that in front of
Yes.
you? Okay,
I
why don't we
have
hold off on 7 then and deal with, we'll hold off on 1, 2, and 7 and move forward with 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. Is that all right?
That sounds
Okay.
great.
All right. Any discussion on any of those items? Again, items 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes.
That report, those items on the report are adopted. On item 1, the certificate of appropriateness appeal. Is that Councilmember Fry? Or, I'm sorry, who's? Okay.
Madam Chair.
All right.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson and Madam President. On item number 1 is a certificate of appropriateness for the appeal of the security warehouse at Fifth Avenue Lofts. During the zoning and planning meeting, Councilmember Goodman stated that while the project would be approved and parking is something the city needs, she wanted the owner and the association to meet and discuss what the owner could do to help alleviate or mitigate the association's concerns. And she asked for a friendly amendment to the motion. so that the appeal could be forwarded to the full city council without action. And that would serve as a sort of a motivation to the owner to engage in discussions with the association. It is our understanding, and I hope that is accurate, that the owner did offer to place additional landscaping, trees, bushes, greening, that kind of thing, on the exterior of the garage to improve the aesthetic. And on safety, the owner did assure the association that the increase would be for tenants only, which I actually do have a little bit of a concern about, given that, if there is the parking shortage in the area, I don't want parking spaces to go unused for the long term if the public could have otherwise used them. But I do understand the concern about safety, so what I'd like to do is just make sure that we're revisiting that down the road. So right now, private, down the road, possibly public. The owner will also provide flyers to the people when they get their fob, reminding them of the shared access from Washington, and they need to be mindful when going in and out of the parking ramp. So bottom line is this: while I do understand the concerns of the appellant and the neighbors with regard to the aesthetics and safety, because they are legitimate, and those concerns have and will be addressed. From a legal perspective, they are not criteria that we can use to approve or to deny a certificate of appropriateness. So from a legal perspective, there's literally nothing we can do on that front. That being said, the owner has agreed to make the improvements that I do think are necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and move to deny the appeal. Happy to answer any questions as well.
Councilmember Fry has moved on item 1 to deny the appeal. Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes.
That item is adopted. On item 2, Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam President. The neighborhood has been extensively involved in this one. This is the General Mills property that is being developed presently by Kelly Doran of Doran, as well as CSM. And there have been several different iterations of this project, and what our staff substantially pushed for was a slendering of the building. And so in order to make the project check out and work, there does need to be a certain number of units. And those units can be situated in a massive block that blocks out sun and light, or it could be a more slender build, but bottom line is that those units do need to go somewhere. And so staff had recommended and pushed Doran to make the building more slender and taller, as opposed to having the block. And that resulted in the approximate 26-story building. There were several requests by the neighborhood on the topic. And so I'll kind of go through I'll go through my motion and the conditions that we do want to have, and then I'll reference the conditions that we do not want to have. So I'm going to move to grant the appeal, followed by Doran for Zoning and Planning Committee from item number 2 for a certificate of appropriateness for the properties located at the 200 University Avenue Southeast, 215 2nd Street Southeast, 223 3rd Avenue Southeast, which this is basically one block here, with the following conditions: a setback from the front wall 5 feet back from University Ave Southeast property line. And I spoke with Mr. Doran directly, and he said that there will be at least that 5 feet setback, which I do think will substantially improve the pedestrian framework. The second is to work with CPED staff to create fewer but more pronounced horizontal and vertical articulations on the 2nd Street Southeast and 3rd Avenue Southeast facades of the 6-story apartment block. And so what this is just to create a little bit more undulation and articulation and more of an interesting presence in the building, so it's just not one massive block. The third is to relocate the mechanical equipment on 3rd Avenue, which the neighborhood had asked for. The fourth is to work with staff to consolidate curb cuts on site. The fifth is to comply with the design guidelines. The project shall utilize one primary material per elevation and no more than 2 accent materials. The project shall not utilize more than one color of any primary material, et cetera, et cetera. 6 is by ordinance, approvals are valid for a period of 2 years from the date of the decision unless required. Permits are obtained and action approved is substantially begun and proceeds in a continuous basis towards completion. And finally is by ordinance, all approvals granted in this certificate of appropriateness shall remain in effect as long as the conditions and guaranteed of such approvals. Basically, they got to comply with the conditions that are set forward. So at this particular location, by right, Doran and any owner developer has the ability to do 6 stories, one massive block, 6-story building, curb to curb. And there's no variances, no conditional. I mean, they don't need anything in order to make that happen. They can do it by right. And that is something that neither I nor the neighborhood wants to see happen. And so while I do understand that the neighborhood is would far prefer a 16 or an 18-story building as opposed to the additional 5 or 6, 7 stories, that's not possible right now. And so we're trying to figure out how to make this work, how to have a fully articulated building, how to add density, as well as just in the last week, we requested that Mr. Dorn add 10 additional affordable units at 60% of area median income. This is not a requirement, is not something that we can condition upon these approvals, but it is something that has been requested. It is something that has been promised, I believe in writing as well. And we very much appreciate the move to add the additional affordable units. So that is my motion. I'm happy to answer any additional questions on the topic.
Councilmember Fry has moved the motion that it's in front of you. Motion by Councilmember Fry, zoning and planning agenda item 2. Is there a second on the motion? Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval. I'm sorry, clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes.
That item is approved. On item 7, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move approval of this ordinance, including the following technical amendments to reflect formatting changes. And I believe that the clerk has passed those out there. Some
Do we have
technical
that?
changes. Formatting changes.
The
Clerk.
No, I don't know that we do have that, Councilmember Johnson.
What's this?
Okay. There we go. Any discussion on Councilmember Johnson's motion on item 7, which is in front of you, zoning and planning number 7? Is there a second?
Second.
Second, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes.
That item is adopted. Next, we have the introduction and referral calendar, and the first is a motion on U-Visa, motion by Councilmember Glidden to introduce the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to administration, employee authority, and immigration matters for first reading and referral to committee of the whole, adding a new section on certification procedures for crime victims in connection with federal immigration laws. That introduction requires unanimous consent today. Any discussion on that introduction? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous consent is given. Next, we have the resolutions, and the first of the only is the resolution 2017 Military Service of America honorary resolution. Any discussion on that resolution? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Under unfinished business, we have the renewable electricity resolution. Councilmember Fry has motion under unfinished business 1. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to postpone the renewable electricity resolution to the Ways and Means Committee held in the second cycle of March 2018 and direct staff from the Coordinator Sustainability Office to prepare and present a formal agenda item at the next meetings for both energy, well, EVAC, as well as the Clean Energy Partnership for review and recommendation to the Ways and Means Committee, second cycle, March 2018. So I make that motion.
Councilmember Frye has moved. Is there a second on that motion? Second. Councilmember Frye has moved to postpone the renewable electricity resolution in the Ways and Means Committee and direct staff to prepare and present an agenda item at next meetings of both the Energy Vision Advisory Committee and the Clean Energy Partnership for review and recommendation, and it'll be heard in the Ways and Means Committee on the second cycle of March 2018. All in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Under new business, I am moving to authorize the city attorney to provide an amicus curiae brief on behalf of the city in the case pending before the United States Supreme Court of Janus versus AFSCME Council 31 in support of the constitutionality of union security provisions that require public employees who decline union membership to pay a fair share fee to cover their pro rata costs of union representation, excluding the union's political expenditures. And I apologize, I've not had a chance to talk to all of my colleagues about this, but this case is extremely similar to the Friedrichs case, which was in front of the Supreme Court where they were deadlocked. And so this is just a new iteration of the same issue. And we did an amicus brief on the Friedrichs case. So I'm moving to do the same thing for this Janus case. I hope I have my colleagues' approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next, we have announcements. Are there any announcements? Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to thank my colleagues as well as all of our departments as the budget hearings concluded yesterday, as we were able to complete the 29 different department hearings that we had, and just wanted to alert people to the rest of the budget approval process and calendar. The next meeting will be on Wednesday, November 29th. That'll be at 6:05 here in these chambers, and that'll be the Truth in Taxation hearing, followed by Friday on December 1st, when this committee, the Budget Committee, will take up the budget markup process. That'll begin at 9:30 to noon, and if additional time is needed, we'll be going starting at 1 o'clock. And that committee will then forward a final budget to the adoption by the City Council, and that'll be on December 6th, where we'll have a budget adoption hearing and make final changes to the budget and approve the budget for 2018 beginning at 6:05 on Wednesday, December 6th, also in these chambers. Just wanted to alert everybody to the calendar and to thank everybody for their participation in the budget process, in particular our amazing finance staff, city clerk's office, who shepherded us through this process, and we look forward to the next step. Thank you so much.
Madam President, with apologies, there are a total of 6 items on the agenda that require a 2/3 vote for passage. We only had 8. Councilmember Bender is here now, so I would suggest that we do a motion to reconsider and then act on what I'm referring to as a 2/3 vote calendar. That would include items 19 and 20 from the Committee of the Whole, item 1 with several subparts under Community Development Regulatory Services agenda, and items 1, 2, and 15 from the Transportation and Public Works agenda.
Okay, Mr. Carl, let's let people look at the items that we're talking about. So why don't we start with the community development item?
So from
Say that again.
Committee of the Whole,
Oh, I'm sorry.
items 19 and 20 on your agenda today.
Okay, let's let people look at it here. 19 and 20. Okay, grant. Okay. All right, next, please.
The next is under the Community Development Regulatory Services agenda, item 1, which is 2017 levies for special assessments. There are several subcomponents, all of which require a 2/3 vote through 12.
Okay. All right.
The next one is on the Transportation Public Works agenda, items 1, 2, and 15.
Okay.
And And procedurally, Madam President, I would suggest that any one of the 8 who were here and voted, because everyone voted affirmatively for passage, could make a motion to reconsider. So the motion to reconsider would be the first action, all of those items. I would suggest, unless there are questions, all of those 6 items can be bundled at one time and voted on in one motion to approve all 6 items.
Okay. Someone care to make that motion? Council Vice Chair has moved to approve the items that require a supermajority.
Move to reconsider.
Move to reconsider, I'm sorry. Move to reconsider. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Those items are before us as the clerk has outlined. Any discussion on any of those items? Madam Vice President Rubin? Okay, there a second?
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 9 votes.
Those items are approved. So the next item on our agenda, if there are no further announcements, is a motion to adjourn. It's a motion to adjourn it's a motion to adjourn to a closed session or potential closed session to discuss litigation, and then also an adjournment to November 29th at 6:05 p.m. as Councilmember Quincy noted in the council chambers for the purpose of conducting a public hearing on the 2018 levy and budget.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in approval say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.